सर्वेभ्यो नमस्काराः। अद्य सिद्धान्तकौमुद्याः स्त्रीप्रत्ययप्रकरणे तृतीयः पाठः। अक्टोबर् मासस्य 22 दिनाङ्कः। येनाक्षरसमां न्यायम् अधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयं नमस्कृत्य तदुक्तिः परिभाव्य च वैयाकरणसिद्धान्तकौमुदीयं विरच्यते। We'll just go through what we started last week. We started with the Stree Pratyaya Prakaranam. The Stree Pratyaya Prakaranam, the entire Prakaranam falls under the Adhikara called Striyam in the first pada of the 4th chapter of Ashtadhyaya. So all sutras in this Prakarana come under the Adhikara of Striyam, which means that the sutras will apply when the feminine gender is to be indicated. So we also went through the commentary, which we have 2 points on what exactly, how a linga is determined in the Shastra. Right? So there is a Laukika way of determining linga, which depends on the physical attributes of persons or animals, etc. Whereas in Shastra, we consider different definitions for linga. तत्त्वरजस्तमोगुणानाम् उपचयः अर्थात् वृद्धिः पुंस्त्वम् इति अपचयः स्त्रीत्वम् इति स्थितिमात्रं नपुंसकत्वम् इति च अङ्गीक्रियते शास्त्रे, न केवलं व्याकरणशास्त्रे अपि तु साङ्ख्यशास्त्रे अपि अन्यत्रापि। ईदृशं लिङ्गं यदस्ति तत् अस्माकं दृग्गोचरं न भवति. We cannot see this linga, cannot determine this linga through our physical senses. केवलं योगिनां हृदयगम्यम् इति कय्यतः कायेन प्रयोगवशाद् अस्माभिः ज्ञातव्यं भवति इति एकः अंशः। लिङ्गम् अर्थनिष्ठम् इति अपरः अंशः। अर्थस्यैव लिङ्गं भवति, शब्दे तस्य लिङ्गस्य अभेदः आरोप्यते। अर्थात् यद्यपि अकारान्तः पुल्लिङ्गः रामशब्दः इति उच्यते, तथापि सा व्यक्तिः अर्थात् राम इत्याख्या व्यक्तिः तस्यां व्यक्तौ पुंस्त्वमस्ति। पुल्लिङ्गशब्दः इति व्यवहारः तु सर्वत्र दृश्यते एव। अन्यच्च इदं लिङ्गं प्रातिपदिकार्थः, अर्थात् प्रातिपदिकस्य पञ्चकं प्रातिपदिकार्थः इति सिद्धान्तः. The ultimate siddhanta of Vyakarana says the Pratipadika itself carries 5 meanings, as in not 5 different meanings. It has 5 characteristics like that. So the Jati, Vyakti, Linga, Vachana, Karaka. That is, it includes the meaning, the particular thing or Vyakti. It includes the class. It includes the gender. It includes the number. And it includes the karaka. So everything is within the pratipadika. So whatever suffix we are adding, like we add 3 pratyayas for linga, we add ekavachana, dvivachana, bahuvachana pratyayas for different vachanas, we add different vibhaktis for karakas. All of them are treated as dyotaka. That is, they are explicit indicators of that property, but that property or the meaning does not belong to the pratyaya itself. There are some pratyayas which carry their own meaning, like you have, say, null or krit. When you go to krit pratyayas, all the krit pratyayas or the tadhita pratyayas, they carry their own meaning. Say if you are saying dasharathasya patyam dasharathihi, the suffix you are adding there, which is in, it carries its own meaning, which is apatyartha. If you are saying pachati iti pachakaha, the null there, it carries its own meaning of karta, that is, he who does the act. But in these cases, that is when we come to Stree pratyayas, the linga or the stritva is not a property of the pratyaya. It is actually a property of the prakriti or the pratipadika. The Stree pratyaya will just bring out or explicitly indicate that meaning. Okay. For now, I mean, this might not seem to make a difference, but it makes a huge difference to the siddhanta. Okay. So that is about the Stree adhikara. The first sutra which we studied under the adhikara was Ajadyatashtap. Ajadinam akarantasya vakyam yastritvam tatra dyotye tapsyat. So the suffix tap is added to all akarantas generally and to words which belong to the Ajadi class in Strilinga. Idam autsargikam sutram. Arthat sarvesham akarantanam samanyataya tap bhavati iti vidhiyate. Tatah adantat akarantebhyah shabdebhyah api tapah apavadattvena nitnisho vidhiyate. So initially the general sutra is Ajadyatashtap, and then Panini covers Neep Nish in many sutras. All of them are exceptions to top. That is, they are also added to Akaranta. So for if you take an Akaranta, Neep and Nish are exceptions to Tap. So if Neep or Nish is not applicable, then we come back to the general sutra which is Tap. And Ajadiganaya Pathaha Neep Nishoho Apavadaha. So if a word is being told in the Ajadi, it overrules Neep and Nish. So that is how the construction is. So first, in the order of precedence, it is Ajadiganaya Pathaha, Tata Neep Nisho, Tataha Adantat Tap. Okay. First we confirm whether the word is in Ajadigana. If it is an Ajadigana, it does not matter what other conditions are satisfied, it will still get Tap. If it is not in the Ajadigana, then we check if any of the Neep or Nish rules apply. If none of them apply, then we fall back to Ataha Tap, that is Akaranta Tap. Okay. So Tap is the general sutra and Neep, Nish are exceptions. Ajadigana is an exception even to that. So that was about the sutra Ajadyatashtap. Just a moment. Chandanji, are you able to navigate the slides?
Yes. Yes, I am able to follow your this thing. And I did confirm people are able to see and hear.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. The next slide. We also saw a few vartikas which were related to Ajadyatashtap. So there are actually 4 vartikas. Samhastrajina Shanapindebhyah Phalat, Tadaskanda Pranta Shataikebhyah Pushpat, Shudracha Mahat Purvajatihi, Mulanmayaha. Chatvari vartikani santi. So these vartikas are again an exception to Neep or Nish as is the case. So yes, there is nothing much about the vartikas. Coming now to the next sutra, Rannebhyo Neep. Itaha Neep Prakaranam Arabhyate. Tap Vidhayakam Ekameva Sutramasti Ajadyatashtapati. Tena Saha Vartikani Santi. Neep Vidhayakani tu Bahuni Sutrani Santi. Evameva Nish Vidhayakani api Bahuni Sutrani Bhavanti. So Neep Vidhayakam Prathamam Sutramasti Rannebhyo Neep. Idam sutram purvameva adhitam kaumudyam ataha atra punaha kevalam ullikhyate dikshitaihi sutra sankhya tu asti trishatottara shate. This was the 306 sutra. You can go back to this and find out that we have already studied this. But since it belongs to the Prakarana, we will look at it again. Dve pade staha sutre ritu nebhyah neep. इति परच्छेदः ऋत् अर्थात् ऋदन्ताः ऋकारान्ताः तथा नकारान्ताः एतेभ्यः नीप् प्रत्ययः भवति। ज्ञाप् प्रातिपदिकात् इत्यधिकारः अस्ति, स्त्रियाम् इत्यपि अधिकारः अस्ति। ऋदन्तेभ्यः नान्तेभ्यश्च स्त्रियां नीप् स्यात्। So for rakarantas and for nakarantas, स्त्रीलिङ्गे नीप् प्रत्ययः भवति। कर्त्री इति उदाहरणं। ऋकारान्तः पुल्लिङ्गः कर्तृ शब्दः, तस्मात् स्त्रियां नीप् भवति। कर्तृ ई इको एणसि इत्यनेन एणादेशे कृते कर्त्री इति रूपम्। दण्डिनी दण्डिन् इति नकारान्तं प्रातिपदिकं, तस्मात् नी प्रत्यये दण्डिन् ई दण्डिनी इति रूपम्। These are examples for ऋणेभ्यो नीप्। अग्रिमं सूत्रम् अस्ति उगितश्च। उगितः च इति पदच्छेदः। पुनः अत्रापि अधिकारद्वयं। ऋणेभ्यो नीप् इत्यतः नीप् इति अनुवर्तते। उगिदन्तात् प्रातिपदिकात् स्त्रियां नीप् स्यात् इति सूत्रार्थः। So we will go into the Balamanōrama. The pratika ugitascha iti. Uk pratyaharaha. So uk, you know the pratyahara in Riluk. So uk pratyaharaha includes u, il and li, 3 letters. उक् इति यस्य सः उगित्, यस्मिन् उग्वर्णः अर्थात् उकारः ऋकारः लकारो वा इत्संज्ञां प्राप्नोति सः उगित्। उगितः इति पञ्चम्यन्तं। तेन प्रातिपदिकात् इत्येतद् विशेष्यते। We have an अधिकार ज्ञाप् प्रातिपदिकात्। उगितः प्रातिपदिकात्, उगितः इति विशेषणं, प्रातिपदिकात् इति विशेष्यं। तदन्तविधिः, येन विधित् तदन्तस्य विशेषणं तदन्तस्य संज्ञा स्यात् इत्यनेन तदन्तविधौ उगिदन्तात् प्रातिपदिकात् इति लभ्यते। तदन्तविधिः उगिद्वर्णग्रहणवर्जम् इत्युक्तेः समासप्रत्ययविधौ प्रतिषेधः इति प्रतिषेधो न। Now he again talks about the येन विधित् तदन्तस्य has a negation. It says samasa pratyayvidhau pratishedaha. Samasa vidhau pratyayvidhau tadantavidhi nasti iti pratishedaha asti. So how are you applying tadantavidhi here is the question. Because this is a pratyayvidhi. I am pratyayvidhi. Atra samasa pratyayvidhau pratishedaha iti tadantavidhehe pratishedaha syat iti samshayah. Ugidvarana grahana varjam ityuktehe. But that pratishedha has a pratishedha. It says Ugid Varna Grahana Varjam. Wherever there is mention of Ugit or there is a mention of a particular Varna, Tad Varjam Pratishedha. So in that case there is no Pratishedha for Tadantavidhi. Ugid Grahane Tadantavidhe Pratishedha Nasti. Varna Grahane api Tadantavidhe Pratishedha Nasti Ityuktvatvat. Ugid Varna Grahana Varjam Ityuktehe Samasa Pratyavidhau iti Pratishedha na. So we can still have Tadantavidhi. So Dikshita has applied the Tadantavidhi to give the Sutrartha as Ugidantat Pratipadikat. Purva Sutrat Neep iti Anuvartate. So we are getting Neep from the Nebhyo Neep. Tadaha Ugidantat iti. So he has clearly explained how we got the Sutrartha. Ugidantat Pratipadikat Striyam Neep. So उदाहरणम् अस्ति भवती इति एकम्, असन्ति इति अपरं मूले. We will continue with the Vyakhyana. Ugid Dvividham. Now this Ugit, that is Uka, Uru, being it, is of two kinds. Pratipadikam, Pratyayasya. So the Pratipadika itself can be Ugit, or the Pratyaya which is added there, as in, it has been added somewhere, can be Ugit. Okay. So Ugid Dvividham Pratipadikam Pratyayasya. Tatra Pratipadikam Udaharati Bhavati iti. Sarvadigane Bhavatu iti Avyutpannam Pratipadikam Pathitam. If you remember the Sarvadigana, Sarvadini Sarvanamani, it goes on with Sarva Vishva Ubha Ubhaya. At the end of it, you find Asmad Yushmad Bhavatu Kim. So Bhavatu is an Avyutpanna Pratipadika, which means it cannot be split further into Prakriti Pratyaya. It is an underived ready form. So सर्वादिगणे भवतु इति अव्युत्पन्नं प्रातिपदिकं पठितं तस्य व्यपदेशिवत्वेन उगिदन्तत्वात् नीत्. So that is ugit, where ukara is it. Bhavatu ityatra ukaraha itsamyakah. The form is bhavat. In Pullinga we have bhavan, bhavantau, bhavantaha. And in Strilinga we are now adding a pratyaya. So since it is bhavat, since it is ugit, we are adding neat, it becomes bhavati. So he raises another question here. It says ugidantat pratipadikat, which means a pratipadika which ends in ugit, you get neat. Now bhavatu is not a pratipadika ending in ugit. It is ugit itself. Bhavatu itself is ugit. If you have something like parama bhavat as a samasa, where bhavatu is at the end of it, tadanim tasya ugidantatvam bhavati. Ayam tu swayam ugit katham pratyayaha. It is prashnaha. So it's a very basic question. So tatra vyapadeshivatvena ugidantatva neat. We have a technique called vyapadeshivat bhava. So vyapadeshivad ekasmin. That is, even if there is only akara, we consider it as akaranta. Right? We have several words. We have Rama, Krishna, etc. They are all akarantas because they have a at the end of it. Even if there is only akara, it has no beginning, no end. But still we treat it as akaranta. That is a rule which says vyapadeshivad ekasmin. Even when there is one thing, we can treat it as tadadi, tadanta, etc. Now, can be treated as akaradi, it can also be treated as akaranta. So similarly, bhavatu itself, even though it is ugit itself, it can be treated as tadanta, ugidanta. So, sarvadigane bhavatu iti avyutpannam pratipadikam pachitam tasya vyapadeshivatven ugidantatvat neet napavitau. Neet pratyaye nakarasya samyasti lashakvatadhute iti sutrena pakarasya samyasti halantyam iti sutrena. अतः नपावितौ इत्य लोपः इत्यनेन उभयोः लोपः अच्छीनद्योर्नुं शप्ष्योर्नित्यम् इति नुम् न शत्रं तत्वा भावात्. So there is no num. We will see num in the next example, so you will know what is that num. So there is no possibility of num here. So we have bhavat e, it becomes bhavati. Ugidacham ityapina sarvanamasthanattva bhavat. So there is also another sutra which gives num. Ugidacham sarvanamasthane adhatohu. We have again seen the sutra frequently. So, but anyway, none of the sutras will apply here. So the form is plain bhavati. Okay? So bhavati is an example where ugit is a pratipadika. The pratipadika itself has some uk letter, one of the uk letters as it. So he started with ugit dvividham pratipadikam pratyayascha tatra pratipadikam udaharati bhavati. So the next example is pachanti. So atha dvitiyam udaharati pachanti. So pachanti is an example for the second. That is where the pratyaya is ugit. Shapshanor nityam iti num iti mule eva asti. So again we go back to the vyakhyana. Pachanti iti patehe lataha shapari shapi pararupe pachat shabdaha. So by now you should have learned to follow this prakriya as given in the vyakhyana. He won't give the prakriya line by line as we are used to. He'll just give it most cases in one word. So you should be able to correlate it with the prakriya as we know. So what does he say? Patehe. Patehe nama pati dhatohu. The pachashpake iti dhatohu. Lataha. So we first do lat as in vartamane lat. Lataha shatari. The lat is replaced by shatri pratyaya. Latash shatri shanako aprathama samanadhikarane. So it is replaced by shatri. So we have lat shatri. In shatri what is left is atu. Okay. So you have lat pati atu. Shapi. We add kartari shap. So pati atu. And then ato gune iti pararupe. Pachat iti pratipadikam. Prakaranam shatrantam pratipadikam. So patehe latash shatari shapi pararupe pachat shabdaha. Tatra shatru pratyayaha ugit. Shatru is ugit because the rikara there in shatru, the initial sh is removed by lasakvatadhite. The ending rikara is also it by upadeshe jananasika it. So we remove it. So since rikara is it, the suffix shatru is ugit. Okay. So tatra shatra pratyaya ugit tadantam pachat. So this pachat is ugidanta. Shatra pratyaya ugit and the pratipadika becomes ugidanta. Tadantam pachat iti pratipadikam iti tasmad niti. So by ugitashta we add neat. There is pachat e idani shapshanor nityam iti num. We saw the sutra again in Strilinga, halanta Strilinga. Shapshanoho nityam. So if there is shapasyan and there is a shatri anga, adantangat paraha yaha shatuhu avayavaha tadantat triyam or niti nadyo athad niti num bhavati. So there is a compulsory num. When there is shap and there is shatri, there is a compulsory numagama. So it becomes pachanti. You had pachat e antyadata paraha numagamaha pachanti. You have also anuswara parasavarna. So the form is pachanti. Okay. So where is it?
Pachanti.
तत्र शत्रप्रत्ययः उगित् तदन्तं पचत् इति प्रातिपदिकम् इति तस्मान् नीति शप्शनो नित्यम् इति तु नुम् इति भावः. यदि तु सर्वादिगणे पठितं भवतु इत्येतत् भातेर्डवतुः इति वित्पाद्यते तदा उगित् प्रत्ययान्तस्यैव उदाहरणं बोध्यते. This is, there are two pakshas always when we are looking at things. The bhavatu, which we already treated as an avyutpanna pratipadika. So if you consider it as avyutpanna, then it is ugit pratipadika. But he says it is also sometimes, some people accept its derivation from the bhadhatu using davatu pratyaya. So if it is treated as a derived form, tatra api davatu iti pratyayaha ugit, ukaraha itsamyakaha. So then it is also to be treated as an example for pratyaya. So that is not a minor point. So I think that is it. We'll stop with the vyakhyana here. We have two examples for ugit. One is bhavati and the other is pachanti. Shapshanohu iti num. Ugidacham iti sutre adgrahanena. Coming back to the mula, he says, Ugidacham iti sutre adgrahanena dhatosched ugit karyam tarhi anchatereva iti niyamyate. Tena ihana ukhasrat. Ugidacham sarvanamasthane adhatohu iti sutramasti. Sarvanamasthane pare ugit bhavati tasya anchadhatoscha numagamaha bhavati iti sutrartha. Now, the anch dhatu is anchu gati pujanayohu iti dhatuhu. Tatra ukaraha itsamyakaha. The ukara is it in anchu. So it is by itself ugit. So when you say ugitaha sarvanamasthane kim bhavati? Numagamaha bhavati. So it naturally means anchu dhatorapi bhavati. So when anchu itself is ugit, whatever karya is told for ugit will also apply for anchu by default. So why should he mention ach there as a question? Ugidacham iti sutre adgrahanena. Arthat ach dhatoh grahanena dhatosched ugit karyam tarhi anchatereva iti niyamyate. So that is pramana for deriving a rule. The rule says dhatosched ugit karyam. If we are applying the ugit karya for a dhatu, that is, there are many dhatus in which uk varnas are it, but if any karya which is meant for an ugit is to be applied to a dhatu, tarhi anchatereva. It can be applied only to anchu dhatu and not to other dhatus. So wherever a sutra like say ugitascha mentions ugit, you can apply this rule only to anchu dhatu. You cannot apply this to other dhatus which also might be ugit. Ugidacham iti sutre adgrahanena dhatosched ugit karyam tarhi anchatereva iti niyamyate. Tena ihana ukhasrat. Because of that, he gives two examples, ukhasrat and paranadhat. In these two, there is no neep. Okay? So ukhasrat, kvip, aniditam halaupadhayah kingiti iti nalopaha. Ukhasrat is derived from sramsu dhatu. So the Vyakhyana gives the derivation. Ukheti, he starts with ukhasrat. The pratipadika is the pratika he takes is ukheti. Ukha kundi. Ukha is a pot, okay, a small pot. Ukha kundi. Ukhayaha sramsate iti vigraha. Sramsa is to, it is not to fall, it is to hang from the pot or to drop down from the pot. Evam paranat dhvamsate. Again, to drop from a leaf. That is, if you have, say, water dropping from a leaf or some other liquid, it is called dhvamsu. Okay. Pitharam sthal yukhakundam ityamaraha. Sramsu dhvamsu avasramsane iti dhatu. There are two dhatus. One is sramsu and the other is dhvamsu. In both these cases, the ukara is it by upadeshaya jananasika it. So both of these are ugit. Supi iti anuvritto, kvipcha iti kvip. They have kvip pratyaya. So you have ukha, srams, kvip, where you have akara. So the sram, the anunasika, aniditam hala upadhayah kingeti iti nalopaha. So you do upapada samasaha, subluk, aniditam iti nalopaha. The nakara is deleted. So we have ukha, sras, v, veraprastasya ityanena kvipaha lopaha. So we have ukha, sras. We had supratyaya, halnyadina sor lopaha. So halnyabhyo dirgha sutisya praktam hal ityanena supratyasya lopaha. We have ukha, sras. Vasu sramsu dhvam swanaduham daha. It is sutram. All these are sutras which we have studied earlier. So vasu sramsu dhvamsu swanaduham daha. Padante etesham dakaraha adeshaha bhavati. Ataha ukhasrad iti rupam. Tasya chartve ukhasrat. So he gives the pratipadika, the prakriya very concisely. So finally you have form like ukhasrat. The point he makes is there is no neep. Even though the dhatu sramsu was ugit, there is no neep here. Why is there no neep? Because ugit karya will not apply to dhatus other than anchu dhatu. It will apply only to anchu dhatu. Ugidatam iti sutre ajgrahanena dhatoshched ugit karyam tarhi anchatereva iti niyamyate tena ihana ukhasrat. Vipu aniditam halaupadhayah kengeti tena lopaha. Evameva paranadhvat. Paranadhvat is very similar. You have dhvams ananasika lope dhvat iti bhavati. Datve dhvad charpe dhvat. Paranadhvat. Anchate is to chadeva. But if it is anchidhatu, then we still have neep. Neep bhavati. Prachi pratichi iti udaharanam. So prachi iti vyakhyaya. Prapurvat anchatehe. You have pra upasarga and anchidhatu. Ritrig ityadina kvin. Aniditam iti nalopaha. Ugitvat neep. Achaha iti akara lopaha. Chau iti dirghaha. Here. So pra upasargat anchu gati pujanayohu dhatu. The next slide I have the prakriya. So as I said, I will not show the prakriya for all. Just occasionally to facilitate the transition. I used to give all prakriya on my slides. But from now on you'll have to learn to understand the prakriya by the vyakhyana. He gives it very clearly. So what does he say? Prapurvad anchatehe. You have the pra upasarga for the anchu gati pujanayohu dhatu. Okay. Ritrig ityadina kvin. Ritrig gadrik srad dig ushnig anchu yudi kunchanta anchu ityasti. Tena kim bhavati? Kvin pratyaha bhavati. Pra anch kvin. Aniditam halaupadhayah kinti ityanena nalopaha. Aniditam iti nalopaha. So the nakara of anchu is removed by aniditam halaupadhayah kinti. Pra ach v. वेरप्रत्यस्य इत्यनेन वकारस्य लोपः. So we have pra, ach. Now ugitascha. Ugitvat neep. Since anchu is ugit, ugitascha ityanena neep pratyayah bhavati. Pra, ach, i ityasti. Achaha iti akara lopaha. There is bhasamya here by yachibham, and because of the bhasamya, ataha ityanena akaraha lupyate. Akarasya lope pra, ch, i ityasti. Chau iti dirghaha. अकारस्य लोपे कृते पूर्वस्य दीर्घः भवति इत्यनेन पूर्वस्य दीर्घे प्राची इति रूपं सुप्रत्ययः भवति सुप्रत्ययस्य लोपः. प्रथमैकवचने प्राची इति रूपम् एवं प्रतीचि. Similarly we did pratīci. So under ugitascha you have three kinds of examples. One is where the pratipadika is ugit, which is bhavati, where pratyaya is ugit, which is pachanti, where dhatu is ugit, which is prachi or pratichi. So it will not apply to other dhatus where the dhatu might be ugit, like ukhasvat or paranadvat. Any questions?
I don't see any raised hand. Please indicate so that I can unmute you. You can talk to Soumya-ji if anybody has a question.
Okay, so the next sutra is vanoracha. Vanaha ra cha iti त्रीणि पदानि सन्ति. ज्ञाप्रातिपदिकात् इत्यधिकारः, स्त्रियाम् इत्यधिकारः, ऋणेभ्यो नीत् इत्यतः नीत् इति अनुवर्तते. So वन्नन्तात् तदन्तात् च प्रातिपदिकात् स्त्रियां नीत् स्यात्. रश्च अन्तादेशः. The sutra first it gives नीत्, र च इति उच्यते, रः च अन्तादेशः. The pratipadika will get a repha as the antadesha for itself. One iti vanip, kvanib, vanipam, samanya grahanam. These are three krit pratyayas. There is vanip, where nakara, kavarga panchamaksharaha it bhavati. Evam kvanip, kavargasya prathamaksharah, kakaraha itsamyakah bhavati. Vanip ityeva. Trini trayaha pratyayaha santi. Trayoho api one ityanena grahanam. So the one in the sutra refers to three pratyayas, which is vanip, kvanip and vanip. One iti vanip, kvanip, vanipam, samanya grahanam. Now, if you look at the sutrartha, he says vannantat, tadantat, cha pratipadikat. So there are two tadantas here. The pratyaya grahane yasmat kavihitas tadades tadantasya grahanam iti paribhasha asti. Pratyaya grahane, wherever a pratyaya is specified, tadantasya grahanam. Pratyaya grahane tadanta vidhi is what we call. There are two tadanta vidhis which apply in Vyakarana. One is pratyaya grahane tadanta vidhi, anyattu visheshanasya tadanta vidhi. If there is pratyaya, we always consider tadanta. Say he is saying halnyabhyo dirghat sutisya prastam halam. So we say halantat, nyantat, abantat, pratipadikat. So the nyanta, wherever he says ni, we consider nyanta. Wherever he says ap, we consider abanta, because ni is a pratyaya. Ni, shni are pratyaya. Ap, tap, dap, chap are pratyaya. So wherever there is a pratyaya, we always take tadanta. Say the adhikara, nyap pratipadikat. We say nyantat, abantat, pratipadikat cha pare. So nyanta is because of this. Wherever he mentions a pratyaya, wherever Panini mentions a pratyaya, we consider tadanta. Because of this paribhasha, pratyaya grahane, yasmat vihitas tadades tadantasya grahanam. The paribhasha which says, if there is a pratyaya, we take tadanta. So since one is a pratyaya, vanip, 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 sarvepi pratyayaha, ataha vannantat iti labhyate. Ekam tadanta grahanam labdham. Tena pratipadika visheshanat tadantantam api labhyate. Now this vannanta is a visheshana to pratipadika. Pratipadikat iti adhikaraha asti. प्रातिपदिकाद् इत्यस्य वन्नन्त इति विशेषणम्. So विशेषणं विशेष्यस्य तदन्तस्य संज्ञा स्यात् स्वस्य च रूपस्य इत्यस्ति. So येन विधेत् तदन्तस्य इत्यनेन द्वितीयं तदन्तग्रहणं. So we get vannantat tadantat cha pratipadika. We take both. That is a word which is ending in one itself and tadanta. So for both of these, vannantat tadantat cha pratipadika striyam neat syat. So pratyaya grahana paribhashaya ekam tadanta grahanam tadanta vidhina aparam tadanta grahanam. So that is why he gives the examples. Examples of Dikshita are very well thought out. He gives the example of Sutvanam Atikranta Atisutvari. Atisutvari is the example. Sutvanam Atikranta. If you look at Sutvanam iti, the Pratika in the commentary. Shui Abhishave iti dhatuhu, Su dhatuhu, Suyajor Vanip. Manip pratyaya. So this is the first of the three pratyayas which we saw there. Manip, Kravip, Vanitam, Samanyahanam. So this one is an example of Manip. So you add two and one. In all three pratyayas, what is left is only one. Okay. So two, one. Hastasya pratikaditake ityanena Siddhagamaha. So you have fifth one. Okay. So fifth one shabdaha. Sutvanam atikranta iti vigrahe atyadaya krantadyarthe dvitiya iti samasah. So you have atisutvan i. Atisutvan ityasmat neat pratyaya bhavati. So he gives this as an example for tadanta because here sutvan is vannanta whereas atisutvan is vannantanta. It is a word which is ending in vannanta. Okay. So for even for plain sutvan, we get neep. Even for tadanta, we get neep. So this is an example for it. So atisutvan ityasmat neep pratyayah. Racha, vanaha, racha, neep bhavati, rascha antadeshaha. So the nakara sutvan is replaced by repha. So you get atisutvari, atisutvari, iti rupam. Evam atidhivari. Dhivanam atikranta. So atidhivari iti pratikah. Vidhai dharana poshanayohu. You have dha, dhatu. Ato manim kvanip vanipascha ityanena kvanip pratyayah. So this is an example for kvanip. So anyebhyopi drishyate iti bhashayamapi kvanip. Khumastha gapa jahati samhali ityanena itvam. So the dha becomes dhi, dhivan iti pratipadikam. So it becomes dhivan I. Atidhivan I iti sthite nakarasya rephadeshe atidhivari iti rupam. Bhashyatu dhyayatehe kvanipi samprasarane alaha iti dirghaha. So the Bhashyakara derives that dhivan in a different way. Either way the word is dhivan, it is kvanip. So vanoracha ityanena neep bhavati rephashtantadeshaha atidhivari iti rupam. Evam sharvari. So sharvari is an example of vanip pratyayanta. So sharvari iti shri himsayam iti dhatuh. Ato manin kvanip vanipascha anyebhyopi drishyate iti bhashayamapi vanip. So this is plain vanip pratyaya. We have shri van. Sarvadhatuka arthadhatukayoho iti gunaha. So it gets guna. Guna for r is by urandra paraha. It is followed by ar. So it becomes sharvan. Okay. Vanoracha iti neep rascha. So sharvan I nakarasya rephadeshe sharvari iti rupam. So vannantasya udaharanam etat. Atisharvari iti pathetu. Idamapi vannantantasya udaharanam. So Dikshita has actually given two examples for vannantanta, atisutvari and atidhivari. He shows how the one and rephadesha apply even at the end of a samasa. And he also gives a plain vannanta as sharvari. So in both cases it will apply. So whether it is plain sutvari, dhivari, sharvari or atisutvari, atidhivari, atisharvari, the rule will apply. अग्रे एकं वाक्तिकमस्ति वनो न हषः इति वक्तव्यम्। वाक्तिकस्य अर्थः अपि मूले एव दत्तः। हषन्तात् धातोः विहितः यः वन् तदन्तात् तदन्तान्ताच्च प्रातिपदिकात् नीप् रश्च न। So if there is a one, the vanip, kvanip or vanip, the pratyaya which are being added to a dhatu which end in hash. Hash is a pratyahara. Hayavarat lan yamagananam bhabhain hadhadash jabagadadash. So hash is actually a pratyahara for mrudu vyanjana. So if there is a dhatu ending in mrudu vyanjana and you add the one pratyaya to it, so for in such a case, vanoracha will not apply. Neep or rekharesha will not happen. Ond apanayane vanip vidvanohu iti atvam avava brahmani iti udaharanam dattam. Look at the avaveti of the pratika. On ityasmat vaniti. The dhatu is ondru apanayane. The rikara is it by Upadesha. So we finally end up with on, where nakara is hash. Right? Nakara belongs to hash. So this is a hashanta dhatu. On ityasmat vaniti. So we have o, on, one. Okay, vanit pratyaya. On one ityasthite. Vidvanohu anunasikasya at. Vidvanohu parayoho anunasikasya, the anunasika, that is the nakara, gets atva, is replaced by a. So you have o, a, one. On ityasmat vaniti vidvanor anunasikasya iti nakarasya atve okarasya amadeshe. So you have o, a, it becomes avava by echoyavaraha. Avavan shabdaha. Stree-thoranaya brahmani iti visheshanam. So why does he say avava brahmani? The avavan, an akaranta, whether it is pullinga or strilinga, it is the same form. If there is neep added, then you can determine strilinga pullinga. When there is no neep, if it is plain nakaranta, whether it is pullinga or strilinga, it will be the same form. So to indicate that this is strilinga, Stree-thoranaya brahmani iti visheshyam. So avava brahmani iti uchyate. So atra on iti dhatoh hashantad one vihitaha. Since the dhatu is hashanta and the one has been added to it, tadanta na neep ratve. So neep or rephadesha will not apply here. Rajavad rupam. So the form will be like that of Rajan Shabda. Avava, avavanau, avavanaha. Raja, rajanu, rajanaha iti vata rupani bhavanti. Avava brahmani. Evameva Rajayudhva. If you look at the this Rajayudhveti, Rajanam Yodhitavati ityarthaha. Bhute karmani kvip iti anuvartamane Rajani yudhikriyaha iti kvanip. So this is a kvanip pratyayanta. Rajani yudhikriyaha iti sutrena van iti bhavati. Rajayudh van. Karimibhute rajani upapade yudhehe kriyascha kvanip iti tadarthaha. So he gives the meaning of the sutra. So you just have Rajayudhvan, Rajayudhvan iti nakarantam pratipadikam. So again there is a hash, yudh, dhakara is hash. So you add one to it and there is no neep or rephadesha. So Rajayudhva, Rajayudhvano, Rajayudhvanaha iti rupam. There is also one more vartika here. Bahuvrihau va. Bahuvrihi samase neep rashya vikalpyate. If it is a bahuvrihi samasa, then the neep or rephadesha is to be done optionally. Bahuvrihau iti. Idam vartikam manorasa iti vichihi bahuvrihau va syat ityarthaha. So you can see, if you come to this and see all the previous examples, you can see that Dikshitar has not given a Bahuvrihi samasas. The udaharana. Sutvanam atikranta, atisutvari, atidhivari, they are all Tatpurusha samasas. So in Bahuvrihi samasa, Vanoracha is optional. Bahudhivari, Bahudhiva. So Bahavaha Dhivanaha Yasyaha iti vigrahaha. It is a Bahuvrihi samasa. Bahavaha Dhivanaha Yasyaha iti vigrahe. You have Bahudhivan is the word. If you do Neep and Rephadesha, you get Bahudhivari. Yada tu na bhavati, tada nakarantam pratipadikam Bahudhivan iti. Bahudhiva, Bahudhivanau, Bahudhivanaha iti rupam. Pakshe dap vakshyate. Further you will see that in this case there is also an optional dap pratyaya. So if it gets dap, it becomes akaranta. Then also prathama ekavachane bahudhiva iti. Kintu bahudhiva, bahudhive, bahudhivaha. Rama rame ramaha iti ekam rupam. Raja rajanau rajanaha iti ekam rupam. Kartri kartyo kartyaha iti ekam rupam. So there are three forms which result here. So in Bahuvrihi, Vanoracha is optional by the Vartika. So that is about Vanoracha. Any questions?
I don't see any raised hands, Ramyaji, but I had a question. Shouldn't we, in the Vanantat, the Grahanavata Pratipadikena Tadantavidhi, with that itself we could have done that, right? Anyway, if it is Striyam, if it is Sri Lanka, shouldn't it automatically apply the Grahanavata Pratipadikena Vidhi?
What is?
Say Vanantat.
Prevents Tadantavidhi.
Okay, so why should we say? So why should we say Tadanta, Vananta, Tadantat? Anyway, by that we are going to get it anyway.
That's right. So, good you raised the question as anticipating this. I mean, it means that you have understood the logic. So the question is, why does he say Tadanta? Why do we need two Tadanta Vidhis here? When we already have a Tadanta Vidhi here. Right. So there is also something over there which says Anupasarjana. The Tadanta Vidhi in Stree Pratyaya Prakarana is Anupasarjana. Will not apply in case of if it is an Upasarjana. Okay. So always that is in if it is Gauna or Apradhana, it will not apply. But in this case, it is required to be applied. That is why he gives the example. He did not give an example where Sutvan is Pradhana. It will apply even if it is Parama Sutvari or Parama Dhivari. He given an example of Atisutvari where it is Upasarjana. Sutvan and Dhivan are not Pradhana here. It is an Upasarjana. So even when it is an Upasarjana, it will apply for Tadanta. So we require two Tadantas here because the Vidhi has to apply whether the word that is the Vananta is Pradhana or Gauna. Okay. So that is why we need the two Tadanta Vidhis. So we get one from Pratyaya Grahana and the other from plain Tadanta Vidhi.
Okay.
So overrule that Anupasarjana. So even if it is an Upasarjana, it will apply.
Okay.
So we will know that when we study Anupasarjana, it is a very important adhikara which again goes through the Stree Pratyaya.
But why is it being the Bahuvrihi here? It looks like out of context for Bahuvrihi, that whole this thing. I know it's Pakshe, but it is just because the whole Bahuvrihi is dealt later on, right?
Bahuvrihi is learned later on, but we are we are just saying about Neep. So he says Rephadesha is also an Vikalpa. So actually this Vartika is being
in Bhashya is that.
Bhashyakara says the Vartika is not needed. It's
Right.
But since the Vartika is there, Nishikar includes it under Vanoracha because the Vartika has been told under Vanoracha. So he just includes it here, but the Vartika has anyway, it is not required. The Bhashyakara says later on.
Thanks.
Okay. So moving on, we will, I think, deal with this just one thing. It's very easy. There's nothing much. पादोन्यतरस्यां पादः अन्यतरस्याम् इति पदद्वयम् अस्ति। ज्ञाप्प्रातिपदिकात् इत्यधिकारः स्त्रियाम् इत्यधिकारः नीप् इति अनुवर्तते। पात् शब्दः कृतसमासान्तः। So there is a samasanta where at the end of a samasa for pada the akara is deleted. Okay? So it becomes pat. Okay? So pat shabdah krita samasantah tadantat pratipadikaat neep va syat vikalpena neep pratyayah bhavati. Dvipadi dvipad iti udaharanam. So look at dvipadi iti dvau padau yasyaha iti bahuvrihi sankhyasu purvasya iti pada shabdantasya akarasya lopah. So when pada is preceded by sankhya or su, the final a is deleted at the end of a samasa. It is a samasanta lopa. Okay? So path, you are end up with path. Dvau padau yasyaha sa. You have dvi pada. The akara is deleted, so it becomes dvipad. Okay? Now you do neep. Padonatarasya mityanena neep bhavati. Dvipad I iti sthite. Dvau padau yasyaha iti bahuvrihi. Sankhyasu purvasya iti pada shabdantasya akarasya lopah. Neepi bhatvat bhasamya bhavati. Neep pratyaye pare yachibham ityanena. Neepi bhatvat padah pat. Pad ityasya pat iti adeshah. So it becomes dvipad I dvipadi iti rupam neep pratyaye. Padabhave dvipad. So since nibabhave to dvipad iti. Since it says neep vasya, nibabhave padadeshopi na bhavati. Pad is not replaced by pat. Padah pat will also not apply. So it remains as dvipad. Dvipadi dvipad iti rupadvayam. Abrithi iti agrimam sutram. Abrithi iti padadvayam. पायोन्यतरस्याम् इत्यतः पादः इति अनुवर्तते. ऋचिवाच्यायां पादन्तात् ताप् स्यात्. When the word refers to a rik is a mantra of the Rig Veda. Okay? So ऋचिवाच्यायां, when it is referring to a rik, padantat tap bhavati. Instead of neep, it is saying tap. Tap richi. ऋचिवाच्यायां padantat tap स्यात्. Dvipada rit. Again it is dvau padau isya sa. So it becomes dvipad and you add tap. So dvipad a. Padah pat ityanena padadeshe dvipada iti rupam. Ekapada. Ekaha padaha isya sa. Ekapada rik. So if it refers to a rik, it is dvipada. If it refers to something else, then it is either dvipadi or dvipad. So ekah padaha isyaha iti vigraha ubhayatrapi tapi. So whether in dvipada or ekapada, you do tap. Padah pat iti padadeshaha. So it becomes dvipada or ekapada. So as you can see, he gives something from the bhashya. The Vyakhyana will always give some extra points. So what does he say? Nyap pratipadikaat iti sutra bhashyetu. So in the bhashya for that sutra nyap pratipadikaat, pada shabda samanarthakam pada shabdam avashtabhya pratyakyatam etat. The bhashyakara says this rule is not readed. Tabrichi, the rule itself has been removed. He disagrees with the rule. He says the rule is not needed. Why? You can derive dvipada or ekapada by using the word pada. Akarantaha pada shabdaha. Pad shabda samanarthakam pada shabdam avashtabhya. There is also an akaranta called pada. So tasmata ajadyatash tap ityanena tap kartum shakyate. Tena dvipada ekapada iti rupam siddhyati. Tena pada shabda samanarthakam pada shabdam avashtabhya pratyakyatam etat. So this rule has been removed by the bhashyakara. Nacha ऋचिवाच्यायां द्विपदी द्विपाद इति प्रयोग व्यावृत्तये एतत् सूत्रम् इति वाच्यम्. So there could be an argument saying that is fine, we can derive dvipada or ekapada, But Richivatyayam Dvipadi Dvipad iti prayoga vyavrittaye. So to say that when it refers to Rik, it cannot be Dvipadi or Dvipad. It can be only Tap. So Tavriti is treated as an exception to Padonyatarasya. So in case of Richi, it should be only Tap. If it is anything else, it should be only Neep or otherwise. Etadartham. Nacha Richivatyayam Dvipadi Dvipad iti prayoga vyavrittaye etat sutram iti vachyam. Iti na vachyam. So don't argue that way. So that is the Purvapaksha. The Purvapaksha says, because of Tabriti, Richivatyayam Tabeva bhavati, Neepva tad atiriktam va na bhavati, anyatra tu Neep tadabhavashcha iti na vakyam, etad bhashya pramanyena. Because of the bhashya itself, since the bhashyakara removes this sutra, tathavidha prayogasyapi ishtatvat. So when Rik is intended, Richivatyayam Dvipada iti prayogaha api bhavati, Dvipadi Dvipad iti trayam api bhavati. So he says, if it is Rik, all three prayogas are accepted, Dvipada, Dvipadi or Dvipad. If it is not Rik, then it is Dvipadi or Dvipad. So, I mean, basically the Bhashyakara says there is no difference whether it is Ruka or not. You can have Tap when you use Pada Shabda, or if you use Pada Shabda, you can have Dvipadi or Dvipad. That is what the Bhashyakara finally says. That is, he removes this distinction between Rik and not being Rik. Etad bhashya pramanyena tathavidha prayogasyapi ishtatvat. So according to Panini, if it is Rik, it has to be Tap, but the Bhashyakara has removed that distinction. Yathottaram muninam pramanyam. When you are treating pramanya, Vararuchi always overrules Panini, and Patanjali overrules both Panini and Vararuchi. That is the precedence in Vyakarana. Yathottaram, Uttarottaram muninam pramanyam. So what Patanjali says will always carry more weight than Panini's or Vararuchi. So bhashya pramanyena idam sutram nasti iti uchyate. So the next sutra, Nashat Susradibhyaha, is again a repetition from previous one. That is, we have already studied the sutra. So we will again look at it in the next class, which is tomorrow. Any question? Enakshiratamam nayam ahim maheshwarat krishnam vyakaranam proktam tasmai paninaye namaha. Nitrayan namaskritya taduktish paribhagyata vyakarana siddhanta kaumudiyam virachyate. So, there were no problems today, whether with audio or presentation. I mean,
I just stopped the session. 1 second, I just stopped the session.
No problem. I mean, you can. I think.
Yeah, actually, there's no, because everybody seems to. When I did ask people for the opinion, they said they didn't have. So I'm hoping that they didn't have any this thing. I didn't see any raised hands, so I didn't ask the questions.